Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So nice to see you. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to rise and speak about the tourism industry, a pillar of this province's economy, and to highlight the cruise ship industry as a key contributing sector of our economic success. I had the great fortune in my career to work for Princess Tours, a subsidiary of Princess Cruises, and spent an enormous amount of time on our ships. The job took me to the jungles of Costa Rica, to Panama, Nicaragua, and of course the glaciers of Alaska, and so many other places and ports throughout the world. The tourism industry is BC's third largest economic sector, and we all know it has been the sector that has been hit the hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic, especially the cruise ship industry. Traditionally, April is the beginning of the Alaska cruise season, and as ships begin to reposition for Alaskan departures that typically run right through late September, it has been these ships that have brought tens of thousands of passengers to visit our beautiful ports of Vancouver, Victoria, Nanaimo, and Prince Rupert. Visitors all experiencing the beauty and hospitality of BC and leaving their hard-earned cash behind, supporting our local and provincial economies. British Columbia is the largest cruise region in Canada, accounting for more than 69% of all Canadian cruise traffic, with visitors from all over the world. Most cruisers come from the United States, while about one quarter from overseas and the rest from Canada. The cruise ship industry in BC is responsible for about $2.7 billion in economic activity. In Vancouver, each docking ship contributes approximately $3.17 million for a total of about $2.2 billion in economic impact. The industry creates around 20,000 direct and indirect jobs in BC. Here in Victoria, the industry is responsible for about 800 jobs, contributing about $130 million per year. In 2019, pre-COVID-19 times, 264 cruise ships visited Victoria with over 700,000 passengers who on average spent about $83 per person, with crew members spending on average about $113 per person locally. Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that the cruise industry is a key driver of economic activity within the tourism sector in BC. It represents one of the largest employers, yet is an industry that has been completely shut down. This in turn affects thousands of British Columbians and businesses who are directly impacted by the catastrophic effect of COVID that has had on this industry. The industry has not only been under attack from COVID-19, but now is under pressure from the United States government. The Jones Act, which for decades has been deemed by the cruise industry as antiquated, is a federal U.S. law that regulates maritime commerce in the United States. Within that act is cabotage. That relates directly to the transports of people and goods between the ports in the same country. If you have been on a cruise, you would note and have noticed that the amount of detail that is spent on recording passengers coming in and off ships. This is all due to the Jones Act. Cruise operators are highly motivated to avoid breaking the Jones Act because if they do not abide by the law, there are significant fines that are levied. Again, this is an act or a piece of legislation that cruise operators for years have believed that is antiquated and restricting. What most people may not know is that most cruise ship operating out of the United States ports are not registered in the United States and are subject directly to the Jones Act. To put this in simplistic terms, because of the Jones Act, cruise ships that were not built in the United States or not U.S. owned and with non-U.S. crews cannot travel directly between U.S. ports unless they stop in a foreign port. This means that a ship with a foreign crew or any way foreign cannot, as an example, go on a round trip from Seattle, Los Angeles, or even Alaska without stopping at a Canadian port, which of course would be Vancouver, Prince Rupert, or Victoria. Due to COVID-19, the Trudeau government curtailed the arrival of cruise ships into Canada until 2022. What that means is that cruise ships originating in the United States and destined for Alaska in 2021, and because of the Jones Act, would not be able to stop in Canada, thus preventing them from sailing north. This has been disastrous news for the American-based cruise companies and industries as they are repositioning to reopen their Alaska market this summer. In response, the decision to close our ports has in turn precipitated the passing of a bill by the Americans that will allow ships to go to Alaska without stopping in Canada. This bill was unanimously passed in a rare example of U.S. bipartisanship, and as I say, unanimously. President Biden signed the bill into law last week, which allows cruise ships to sail to Alaska without requiring them to stop in Canada. Well, what does that mean for BC and the thousands of British Columbians who depend on the arrival of these ships? It means that the millions of dollars of tourism-generated monies that were spent in our province will end up being spent in American ports like Skagway, like Ketchikan and Juneau, ports that are absolutely dependent on the cruise industry. Mr. Speaker, this new law represents an achievement the industry has wanted for years. The cruise industry has been asking for the repeal of this for years, and they finally have got it. All because 2 Alaskan senators and an Alaskan congressman took it upon themselves to do their jobs and fight for the well-being of their constituents who are so dependent on the cruise ship industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.